Hello and welcome to Storylines, the women's cricket podcast. I'm Nikki Chowdhury and I'm joined by my lovely, lovely co-host Melissa Story.
Nikki, well, how are you
There's
feeling?
a
How
smile,
are
say
you
it all.
feeling?
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so emotionally happy. I can't even tell you how many times I've shed tears since the winning moment yesterday.
Is it
Like,
possible to be unemotionally happy?
see, I
This
don't
is
even
how
make
I know
sense.
this has scrambled your brain. India becoming World Cup champions has broken Nikki Chowdhury.
I just don't know how to react. I kind of was lying in bed this morning looking at all this content that was coming out, and I was just like, I'm so happy. Like, when like you're like a proud mum moment, but obviously you're like, I don't know what it feels like to be a proud mum because I'm not a mum, but like if I was ever a proud mum, I'd feel so emotional, and I just felt like a really heavy heart as well. You know when you go through a breakup.
Well, tell us from, I guess, a point of view then for Indian women's cricket, what does this victory mean to the players, to the fans,
Oh, it's
to the
huge.
landscape?
I think it's just absolutely monumental in terms of for the women's game overall, uh, and within such a short span of time. I think I saw a stat which was so the 1983 World Cup, then 2011, and then there was this one, and it's absolutely incredible to just see. I was glued to the television yesterday, Melissa, and DY Patil was so blue, so loud that when you were listening to the radio commentary, I'm not sure about you, but it was echoingly loud. And to think that is the sort of attraction, the engagement that women's cricket has got in India, it's ridiculous. And I just think it's scary, but in a good way, to think in the next 5 years what's going to be the state of Indian women's cricket.
I mean, particularly as well, given all the factors which, do come into play in terms of what it is like for women and girls in terms of accessing education, opportunities in cricket, access to facilities, and the fact that from the Women's Premier League being introduced, it gave plenty of women this vision that they didn't have to be an international cricketer in order to make cricket their profession, but actually being able to see the Indian women's team lift the trophy for so many, not only young girls to be inspired, but actually families, I think, and cultural mindsets to be shifted to say, look, we want our daughter to play cricket 'cause we want her to be a professional cricketer. We want her to lift the World Cup, just like that bunch of players out there.
Absolutely. And I think culturally that's going to make a massive shift because, like, before the World Cup even started, I told you that being in India, you could see that the sort of publicity, the stardom that the players were getting in likes of a Jemima or a Smriti or Harman with like advertisings and all of that, they were in your face. Now they've just gone and won the World Cup, which the Indian men's team hasn't been able to get their ODI title. And they lost the last one, right? And then actually, I heard that Dinesh Karthik said on commentary that apparently Rohit Sharma told him that he was going to come and watch the finals so he knows what it looks like to win a home World Cup. And I was like, oh, but like just to see like everyone was there. It wasn't like there was any sort of, oh, it's a women's World Cup, like which we have seen in previous years. I think I saw a picture which had 2013 World Cup, which was in India, Australia playing the final, and the stadium in Mumbai was basically deserted. It was a final. Fast forward, 12 years? Yeah, 12 years, my maths. It's a completely different story, and just also to see the likes of your Mitali Raj, your Julan Goswami, your Rima Malhotras, everyone there, and the celebrations, you could just see what it meant to them. And I think, especially for Mitali, like she started the path. I think she started paving that path, and she really got things going. And for her to be there and actually see her dream come to life on home soil, like I was an emotional wreck, and I'm just so happy. I don't have any more words, but it was such a good game. It wasn't one-sided, and I think if we had to talk about the details, which I'm like, which I know we will, but for as long as Laura Wolvaardt was out there in the middle during that chase, it was pretty much what 56, like 40, 60%, 50-50. There was like, it was very, very close.
Well, as you say, let's start from the beginning because, of course, the first thing on the day was a lot of rain and a lot of panic that
Oh,
the final wasn't even going to take place on that day at all. Fortunately, ground staff did a fantastic job. The rain did stop in Navi Mumbai, and it was India who went and batted first, and a really good opening partnership, which I think had South Africa very much on the ropes. 104 for that first wicket partnership between Smriti Mandana, she got 45, and then Shafali Verma, who you almost knew this was going to happen, particularly after she failed to score any runs
but
in
what a
that
story.
semi-final.
What a
I mean,
story. And I think,
21 years old.
yeah, it's just phenomenal. And for her to go out there, score that half, pick up those two wickets. And I think everyone knew that having Shafali Verma bowl was a complete gamble, but they needed to do something to break that partnership. And just the day before in the semi final, I was watching the Indian stream on Star Sports, and Anjum Chopra was like, I think Shafali should just stick to bowling in the nets. Like, it's great that she wants to bowl, but I think if India have to toss her the ball, then there's trouble. And you could say there was trouble because no one was getting that breakthrough. But look what she did. Second ball of her first over goes in and gets the wicket. And I think everyone was just like, oh my God, this worked.
Well, let's go back to the batting innings first, please. I'm going to try and keep this as chronological as possible, but I appreciate as
Oh,
well.
oh,
We are very
sorry.
excited.
Yes, I just got excited by Shafali Verma. I'm
It's,
sorry.
you know what? Everyone gets excited by Shafali Verma because she did the classic thing. She struck the ball at over 100 and just propelled India to this really good start. There was that wobble in the middle though, where they lost wickets. They were 166 for two, then 171 for three, and South Africa had a bit of a look in. And actually, for that final segment of India's batting innings, South Africa really pulled it back, and actually it was Deepti who has been remarkable this competition, and we'll go on to talk about her 5 wickets in just a bit. But I think this is her what her third half century now, her fourth. I can't even keep count. And I know she doesn't capture the headlines because she is an unassuming player. I think she's just one of those players who gets the job done. She bowls her middle overs, she bats sensibly, she doesn't come out with all these fireworks, but she has been such a valuable contributor across this World Cup for India. And scoring that 58 runner ball, it did get India closer to that 300 mark, 298 for 7, their final score. I think a lot of the agreement was that there was probably a few runs left out there from an Indian point of view, but actually that the surface wasn't quite as true as that one used in their semi-final against Australia. So actually a score around 300 was probably similar to a score around 350 in that semi-final.
Yeah, no, completely agree because it wasn't as trustworthy, but the way they pulled it back, especially as you said, the Ghosh as well. Like she has just really just been fantastic. She's gone in and she plays those quick cameos that really change the dynamics of a game in such a short period of time. Like give Richa Ghosh like 5 overs out in the middle and it completely changes it. And I think that's exactly what happened yesterday.
And there was one where I think it was Marizan Kapp must have bowled what probably was a Yorker, and somehow Richa Ghosh lofted the ball over extra cover. And there are not many players, I would say, who are capable of playing that shot, let alone playing it consistently. And I would almost say staggering how quickly Richa Ghosh has developed as a player because everyone knew she was capable of that power hitting side. But I think what's crept into her game these last 2 years is that ability to assess the situation just that little bit more and go, well, not every single ball has to try and go for six, but where are my strengths? Where, if she bowls it in that area, then I'm going for it. But besides that, there's still ways which her game will improve and develop inevitably in terms of rotation of the strike, and the more she bats with different players like Jamima Rodriguez and Amanjot Kaur almost and Deepti herself, then that will come into her game. But for now, when she comes in that kind of final 10 overs position, she's so dangerous. And I mean, the South African bowlers, 3 wickets for Ayabonga Kaka, 1 wicket for Nonkululeko Mlaba, who I think probably didn't quite get as much assistance from the pitch as they would have hoped, because on these better batting tracks, I think some spinners have adapted by just bowling that little bit quicker and skidding the ball on. I think Mlaba's approach is to bowl that little bit slower, which has benefited her across the competition on those turning wickets. Not so much, but she still did really well nonetheless, because she went at under fives. And then, you had Chloe Trowan as well, Nadine de Klerk both pick up a wicket each. So I mean, when it got to the halfway stage, Nikki, I was thinking, I think South Africa could chase this down, dependent on how their opening partnership goes, which is in a complete contrast to when, in that first semi-final, England played South Africa, and I went, England's not chasing this down whatsoever.
Yeah,
And I don't know
completely.
whether that's a mindset thing, like, because I considered South Africa would have a better mindset about the chase than England had in their semi-final.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. I think the way South Africa build their innings in terms of going about a chase is very well calculated. And especially with the scores in sight. Like, for example, in that semi final, England already kind of looked a little bit on the back foot that in that first over. Yes, they lost those 2 wickets, but you could kind of see the trickle down effect, and it it just it just seems that, like you mentioned, that South Africa are just a lot more confident with the bat when it comes to chasing, and that obviously really goes down to the fact that they're being led by Laura Wolvaardt. She's scored over 500 runs in this World Cup. Like, I'm
That's
sorry,
the
that is
most for any player, isn't it, in
it
any
is. It's
women's World Cup?
ridiculous. And she scored 100 in the semi final. She scored 100 in the World Cup final. She's 26 years old, and she just bats like a boss.
Did you see the videos from within the stadium at Navi Mumbai when she went to go uh, get interviewed and everyone was chanting her name and kind
I
of saying,
saw
"Well
that.
played, Laura,
Well
well
played,
played."
Laura. And I just thought, from a fan's point of view, how lovely is that? Or and like from like her point of view as well, to think that she's done something so special that the fans of the opposition side have made it a point that whilst they're collecting their medals and doing those handshakes and all those formalities, they've taken a moment of their time out to congratulate her, because she's just been so fantastic. And you don't see it that often, and especially now with the publicity this World Cup is staged for the women's game. It's brilliant to see, and I just thought, you know what, this is such a life-changing World Cup, I think, for life-changing, yeah, for the women's game. It's I'm so excited just to see how this all develops. And like we spoke in the last episode, yes, South Africa couldn't quite cross the line, but they have shown so much fight, so much grit, so much determination that Cricket South Africa really need to make sure they back these girls, because who knows, come next World Cup, it could be them with the trophy.
And that's probably where the element for South Africa not enabling them to get over the line, I would say, in terms of their consistent contributions down the order. And when you look at their side, there is still probably a few weaker points. In contrast to India, where I would say across the competition, they by no means had a smooth sailing journey, but they had consistent contributions down the order. But for example, Annika Bosch, who was out for a six-ball duck in this World Cup final, she's only scored
Oh, and then she had Pam
35
Nair in
runs
field.
across this competition. And that's your number three slot as well, bear in mind. So, you
Mm.
want someone who's able to churn out those runs. I think a really instrumental moment, or is that right? We did this in the last episode as instrumental word.
Yeah,
We've
we
got to
we
stop
we
using these
established
words.
this instrumental's a word, and if it isn't, it is now. So
I mean, I thought a huge moment was that run out from Amanjot Kaur of Tasman Brits, because we spoke about how
ridiculous.
important that opening partnership was.
Absolutely. Just, I think overall, India in the field yesterday, they were electric. They, compared to the mishaps that they had in the semi final, and my goodness, did they have a few mishaps? Like, it did look a bit village at times. They literally bounced back in the field yesterday, and it was the amount of times the commentators kept praising the levels of the fielding. The amount of times the commentators kept praising the fielding, and just it was so evident they were putting everything behind the line, and it was like a different side in the field compared to the semi-final match. They were literally so on it, like on the boundary, in the ring. There was a fact, I think it was Annika Bosch's wicket that she was trying to get off the mark in that over, but they were so good in the ring on the offside that I think she drove one straight to Jemima. Jemima managed to cut it off, otherwise that was going for four. It happened again, and then she was in a bit of a pickle, gets herself stuck and gets trapped LBW to Sri Charani. But it was just the intensity that they created led to all like those wickets falling, and you could just see the pressure and how they were getting into the faces of the South Africans.
And that would have been such a help for Harmanpreet, because as I say, you had that turning point when Brits has run out, and then the decision, as you've mentioned, to bring Shivali Verma on, who picked up that wicket of Sunil Luz, who was beginning to build that partnership with Wolvaardt, and then also being able to pick up the wicket of Marizanne Kapp as well, who you feel in these scenarios is one of those big
Mm-hmm.
game players who would have been so up for it. Then the most baffling decision from South Africa to send Sonalo Jafta in at number 6 when you had Dirksen, Trown and de Klerk below. I genuinely think that was a really fatal moment for South Africa, because Sonalo Jafta, she ended up scoring 16 runs off 29 balls, but she is a prodder, she is a poker, she is someone who stays at the crease. When you've got one of the best strikers in the tournament in de Klerk, one of the best strikers in the game in Trown, a really exciting youngster in Dirksen who ended up hitting 35 off 37 balls. And by Jafta going in at 6, for me, it put so much pressure on the rest of the chase. She was striking at 55, and actually the required run rate for South Africa was just going up and up and up, and it was too much pressure for Wolvaardt. Wolvaardt was deprived of the strike as well, which I think interrupted her flow just that bit as well. And I don't know whether there'll be some reflection from South Africa, but I really do think that decision was fatal, and it allowed Deepti then to come in and do what she does best, which actually bowl that fuller length, bowl those Yorkers, and really just begin to squeeze. And with the pressure mounting and mounting and mounting, in the end, eventually Wolvaardt dismissed by Deep for 101. What a moment that was. Again, for Amanjot Kaur, taking that catch on the boundary, juggling that catch on the boundary.
I was like, my heart was in my mouth at that point. I was like, oh my god! And that was the match. I think that would be the match-winning catch. It had to be, because they needed to get Laura Wolvaardt out, like back in the dugout, and she wasn't looking like she was going to give it away. And thank goodness Amanjot Kaur could keep hold of that. Well, she could try in the circus as well, because she's good at juggling.
And it's such a nice, heartwarming story for Amanjot Kaur as well, with her dad really pushing her to play cricket, and making sure he did everything in his power to be able to get her to training and get her into facilities. So a really nice story there. But I mean, final moments. It had to be Deepti bowling, and it had to be Harmanpreet with the catch, who she did not let go of that ball. It was a really good catch, and in the
It was a
moment, the fact her
fabulous
momentum was
strike.
taking her to the crowd, she could then start the lap in front of the crowd, and just, you mentioned at the start, the scenes, the tears, the emotions, the ex-Indian players, all of it factoring in front of a packed out home crowd, just made it one of those monumental moments in the women's game, which I think will 100% define the way this Indian team conducts themselves going forwards, and the confidence they possess, because they went the hard way to the final. They beat Australia. They had that
They were
fantastic
on.
semi-final. There was always the danger they peaked too soon, but they didn't, because they managed to hone in all of that momentum, that enthusiasm, and put in the performance of a lifetime. And it was great to listen to. Absolutely great to listen to.
Yeah, and they were on the verge. This is a side that was on the verge of being knocked out of their own World Cup, right? Three back-to-back losses. How do you get back? Just about managed to qualify, secured the position at fourth on the table, beat Australia in a game that I don't think you could have even imagined, and then managed to get that World Cup on home soil. And I think, as Mitali Raj put out on social media, like, so much credit to the BCCI as well. And when Jay Shah was head of the BCCI, the amount of support and investment that he's provided to women's cricket, and then he was of course now he leads the ICC in handing over that trophy, but to really invest in the domestic structure, bring in the WPL, get the domestic structure stronger with India A tours as well, and thriving under 19 pathway, and well, this is the result. And yeah, and I think it was just literally written in the stars, that ending, that catch from Harmanpreet Kaur. You saw what it meant. And actually, really funny story here, Melissa, is because there was a Bollywood movie that came out a good, what, more than 10 years ago now. It's called Chak De India. and it was about hockey, right? And it was the Indian women's hockey team that go on to win the World Cup. And the story is very similar, going through struggles, and they get into the semi-finals against England or something. It was literally, this movie has been replicated in real life with cricket, and also more so because the head coach in that movie had a very similar story to what India's head coach had here. So Amol Mazumdar, for those watching, listening, who don't know, he played for Mumbai in the county state structure in India. I think scored around 11,000, close to 12,000 first class runs. Unlucky to not wear the India jersey. I think he was in and around the squad, but never got to play, but then goes on to lead this side and win the World Cup, and on home soil. He's a Mumbai boy, and this is exactly the same thing that happened in the movie, and even more creepy or spooky. It's in the movie. The day that they won the World Cup in the hockey match was the 2nd of November. What was the date yesterday?
2nd of November.
It was crazy. I was like, this was like written, but it was just, oh, I would happily watch that match again from the start, not in highlights, but with ball by ball.
Don't worry, because every time there is a rain delay for the next 4 years, highlights of that game will be being played on TV. So you can watch it. You'll be sick of it in 4 years' time, Nikki. I can guarantee you. On that note, we will do a bit more of a World Cup post-mortem, particularly from an England point of view, in a coming episode. But for now, thank you so much for tuning in for these World Cup episodes. We've had a lot of fun, and Nikki, I am incredibly delighted for India. I'm incredibly delighted for you because I love seeing you happy, and you were so happy yesterday. It was great. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.